Commander Ji-won Park stared out the window of the Earthship as it approached Nexus Prime. The space station was bigger than anything she had ever seen. It looked like a giant metal flower floating in space, with hundreds of docking arms reaching. Out in all directions, ships of strange shapes and sizes moved around it like busy insects. "First time seeing the Galactic Council headquarters?" asked Minho Kim, the ship's chief scientist. He was looking at his tablet, reading about the different alien species they would meet. "Yes," Ji-won replied. 2 years ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're going to ask them to let us join their club." Sura Choi, Earth's top diplomat, walked over to them. She looked nervous but tried to hide it. "Remember, they think we're primitive. We need to prove them wrong." The 3 humans represented Earth's best hope. Ji-won was a military commander who had never lost a battle. Minho was a brilliant scientist who could understand alien technology faster than anyone. Sura was a diplomat who could talk her way out of any problem. Together, they carried the hopes of 8 billion people. Their ship docked with a soft bump. The airlock opened, and they walked into a corridor filled with aliens. Ji-won had seen pictures, but seeing them in person was different. Some looked like giant insects. Others had multiple arms or eyes in strange places. A few glowed with their own light. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," said a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "I am Council Secretary Vexathon. Please follow me." They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls showed moving pictures of different worlds and star systems. Aliens of all kinds moved past them, some stopping to stare at the humans with curiosity. "How many species are in the council?" Sura asked. 12 founding members," Vexathon replied. 47 associate members, and hundreds of observer species. You humans are here as potential associates." They entered a huge room with a dome-shaped ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 platforms surrounded a central area, each one holding representatives from different alien species. The humans were given a small platform at the edge. Council. Speaker Mordak, a creature that looked like a walking tree, called the meeting to order. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Today, we consider the application of the species called humans from the planet Earth," he announced. "They have been observed for 2 of their years and found to be adequate for basic membership." Ji-won felt her face get hot. Adequate? Earth had survived ice ages, built cities, and reached for the stars. But she stayed quiet. General Kithrak from the Thalorian Empire stood up. He was tall and covered in silver scales. "The humans are too young. Too violent. They still fight wars on their own planet. How can we trust them?" Before Sura could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed everywhere. An alien rushed into the chamber and whispered something to Speaker Mordak. "Council members," Mordak announced, his voice shaking. "We have received terrible news. The Kepler mining colony has been destroyed. All 50,000 inhabitants are dead." The chamber erupted in frightened voices. Aliens spoke in their own languages, but the translation devices made sure everyone understood. The fear and anger. "The Void Reapers have returned," said Counselor Thylek from the insect-like Krexny species. 3 outer rim worlds destroyed in the last month. Our fleets cannot stop them." Ji-won had heard about the Void Reapers during their briefing. "They were mysterious attackers from outside the galaxy who destroyed everything in their path. No one knew what they wanted or where they came from." "What is our response?" demanded General Kithrak. "The Third Fleet will investigate," replied Admiral Zorthak from the aquatic Delphinian Republic. But we cannot spare more ships. The core worlds must be protected. So we abandon the outer colonies? Asked a small alien from a species G1 didn't recognize. If necessary, General Kithrak said coldly. G1 watched the argument grow louder. These aliens had technology that could destroy planets, but they were acting like scared children. The Thalorians wanted to protect only their rich worlds. The smaller species begged for help that wouldn't come. No one was working together. She looked at Minho and Sura. They nodded back at her. It was time to take a chance. "Council Speaker," G1 called out, standing up on the human platform. The chamber went quiet. All eyes turned to her. "You have not finished considering our application," she continued. "But we have a proposal." "The humans wish to speak?" Mordak sounded surprised. "Very well." G1 took a deep breath. "We know you think we're primitive. Maybe that's true. But we know how to fight enemies that seem impossible to beat. We've been doing it our whole history." She activated her tablet and projected images into the air above the chamber. Pictures of human soldiers' battles and victories appeared. "Give us full membership now with access to your technology and ships. In return, we'll fight the Void. Reapers. We'll protect the outer worlds that you're ready to abandon." The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. "Impossible!" General Kithrak roared. "They have no space fleet, no advanced weapons." "That's why we need your help," Sura said, standing beside G1. "But we have something you don't have anymore." "And what is that?" asked Counselor Thylek. Dr. Hyun Lee's voice came through their communication system from Earth. She had been listening to everything. "Hope," she said simply, "and the willingness to fight for people we've never met." Minho activated his own tablet. "We've studied your military records. You always fight the same way. Big fleets, direct attacks, predictable tactics. The Void. Reapers expect that. They're ready for it." "But they're not ready for us," Jawan added. "We fight differently. We adapt. We find ways to win even when we're outnumbered and outgunned." Speaker Mordak looked around the chamber. The alien faces showed doubt, fear, and a tiny bit of hope. "The humans propose an exchange," he said slowly. "Immediate full membership for military assistance against the Void Reapers. All in favor?" The vote was close. Some species voted against them. Others abstained. But when the count was finished, Earth had won by 3 votes. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," Mordak announced. "May the universe forgive us all." As they left the chamber, Sura whispered to G1, "Do you really think we can beat these Void Reapers?" G1 looked back at the aliens who were still arguing among themselves. "I don't know, but at least we're going to try." That's more than they were doing. 3 days later, the first human ships arrived at Nexus Prime. They were small and simple compared to alien vessels, but they carried something the galaxy hadn't seen in a long time. Warriors who believed they could win against impossible odds. The universe was about to learn what humans could do when they had nothing left to lose. Captain Do-Hyun Yu floated in zero gravity inside his command ship, watching the stars through the clear dome above his head. 6 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council, and everything had changed. His ship was still human-built, but now it had alien technology mixed in. The engines were faster, the weapons stronger, and the shields could stop attacks that would have destroyed old Earth ships. "Captain," called his communications officer, "we're getting a message from the Kepler system. The Void Reapers are attacking the mining station there. Do-hyun pushed himself toward the command chair and strapped in. How long until we arrive? 20 minutes with the new fusion drives that engineer Nari built, replied the navigator. Do-hyun smiled. Nari Song was a genius who had figured out how to combine human engineering with alien science. Her hybrid engines could push ships 3 times faster than anything the galaxy had seen before. Her adaptive shields could change and adapt to different types of attacks in real time. Send a message to Admiral Bay, Do-hyun ordered. Tell him, we're moving to intercept. Admiral Junho Bay commanded the joint fleet from his flagship. When the Council had first seen his plans for mixed-species crews, they thought he was crazy. Humans working alongside insect-like Krexni warriors, aquatic Delphinians operating in air-filled suits, and crystalline Vorthak providing technical support. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. All ships, this is Admiral Bay, his voice came through the communication system. Remember your training. The Void Reapers expect us to attack in formation like the old Council fleets. We're going to do something different. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, near Kepler Station. What they saw made everyone go quiet. 3 massive black ships, each one bigger than a city, were shooting beams of red light at the mining station. The station's shields were failing, and pieces of metal were flying off into space. Council records say those ships are impossible. To stop, said Do-hyun's weapons officer, a young Krexni named Tiktar who had learned to speak perfect human English. Good thing we don't read council records much, Do-hyun replied. All ships, begin Operation Swarm. Instead of flying in straight lines like traditional galactic fleets, the human ships scattered in all directions. They moved like a school of fish avoiding a shark, never staying in one place long enough for the Void Reapers to target them properly. First wave, hit their sensor arrays, Admiral Bay commanded from his ship. Second wave, target their engines. Third wave, go for the weapons. The attack was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Small human ships darted between the massive Void Reaper vessels like angry bees, hitting weak points and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The Void Reapers tried to turn their huge weapons toward the humans, but the ships were too fast and too unpredictable. Engineer Nari Song watched the battle from her laboratory ship. Her fingers danced over controls as she adjusted shield frequencies in real time, matching them to the Void Reaper weapons. Every time the enemy tried a different type of attack, her shields adapted within seconds. Nari, their main weapon is charging, Captain Do-hyun called over the communication link. Can your shield stop it? I don't know, she replied honestly. But let's find out. The Void Reaper ship fired a beam of energy that should have cut Do-hyun's ship in half. Instead, the adaptive shields absorbed the energy and actually used it to make the ship's own weapons stronger. Impossible, whispered Tiktar. No, said Do-hyun with a grin. Just human. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, all 3 Void Reaper ships were either destroyed or retreating. The mining station was saved, and not a single human ship had been lost. The victory sent shock waves through the galaxy. For the first time in decades, someone had defeated the Void Reapers in open battle. But not everyone was happy about it. General Kithrak of the Thalorian Empire called an emergency meeting of the Council military commanders. His silver scales were darker than usual, a sign that he was angry. The humans have proven effective, he admitted through gritted teeth. But their methods are uncontrolled. They share their tactics with any species that asks. They refuse to follow established military protocols. Admiral Junho Bai sat across from him, calm and relaxed. Our methods work. The Outer Rim colonies are safe for the first time in years. That's not the point, General Kithrak snapped. Military secrets must be controlled. What if this knowledge falls into the wrong hands? Whose hands would those be? Asked Bay quietly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. For thousands of years, the Thalorian Empire had controlled galactic military doctrine. Their generals had decided who lived and died, which worlds were worth protecting and which could be sacrificed. Now these upstart humans were teaching anyone who wanted to learn. Back on Earth, President Yunha Lim was dealing with her own problems. The Thalorian ambassador had demanded a private meeting, and his message was simple: share all human military technology immediately or face economic sanctions. The Galactic Council has protocols, the ambassador said, his translator making his hissing voice sound cold and mechanical. Advanced military technology must be approved by the Security Board before distribution. The Security Board that's controlled by 5 species, including yours? President Lim asked. The system has worked for millennia. President Lim stood up and walked to the window of her office. She could see the construction crews building new spaceports to handle the flow of alien technology and trade goods. Earth was changing faster than anyone had imagined. Ambassador? She said without turning around. Let me explain something about humans. We don't like being told what we can and cannot share, especially when people are dying. She turned back to face him. Earth will continue to share defensive technologies and tactics with any species that asks. We will not, however, hand over strategic capabilities to anyone who demands them. The ambassador's scales shifted to a darker color. You are making a mistake, President Lim. The Thalorian Empire has ways of ensuring compliance. I'm sure you do, she replied calmly. But you should know something about humans. We're very good at fighting people who try to bully us. 3 weeks later, President Lim addressed the full Galactic Council via hologram. Representatives from dozens of species listened as she outlined what would become known as the Terra Doctrine. Earth believes that knowledge should serve all people, not just the powerful, she said. We will share our discoveries freely with any species that uses them for defense and protection, but we will not be forced to hand over capabilities that could be turned against innocent people. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species cheered, especially the smaller ones who had never had access to advanced military technology. Others, led by the Thalorians, demanded that Earth follow established protocols. This is how civilizations fall, General Kithrak declared. When order breaks down, chaos follows. Maybe, President Lim replied, but we'd rather have chaos than tyranny. Meanwhile, intelligence officer Seojin Han was discovering disturbing information in the classified council databases that Earth now had access to. Hidden files showed secret communications between several council species and unknown parties. The messages were encrypted, but human codebreakers were very good at their jobs. Admiral, Seojin called Bay on a secure channel. We have a problem. I found evidence that at least 3 council species have been in communication with someone outside the galaxy. The Void Reapers? Maybe. The messages talk about acceptable losses and core world protection. It looks like some council members are planning to sacrifice the Outer Rim colonies to save themselves. Admiral Bay was quiet for a long moment. How sure are you? 90%. We need more evidence. But the pattern is clear. Some of our new allies are planning to betray us. As Seojin compiled her report, engineer Nari Song was making discoveries of her own. The alien technology that Earth had been given access to was more advanced than anyone had realized. Hidden in the technical specifications were references to something called architect protocols and legacy systems. "What do you think it means?" asked her assistant, a young human engineer named Taiho Moon. "I don't know," Nari replied, studying the strange symbols on her screen. "But I have a feeling we're going to find out." 6 months after joining the Galactic Council, humanity had already changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They had saved colonies that everyone else was ready to abandon. They had shared knowledge that had been hoarded for millennia. And they had shown that the supposedly invincible Void Reapers could be defeated. But they had also made enemies among the very allies they had sworn to protect. The galaxy was becoming a more dangerous place, and humanity was right in the center of it all. The universe was about to learn that when humans decided to fight for something, they didn't give up easily, and they never fought alone. Dr. Yeji Kang knelt in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. The Void Reapers had destroyed everything here just 2 weeks ago, leaving behind only melted metal and broken stone. But Yeji wasn't looking at the destruction. She was looking at something much older. "Commander Moon, come look at this," she called to her escort. Commander Taiho Moon walked over, careful not to step on the strange metal pieces scattered around the ruins. He was leading a team of human and alien scientists who were trying to understand how the Void Reapers chose their targets. "What did you find?" he asked. Yeji pointed to symbols carved into a large stone block. The symbols glowed with a soft blue light, even though the power grid for the entire planet was dead. "These aren't from any known species," she said. "They're much older. Maybe millions of years old." Taiho looked closer. The symbols seemed to move and shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. "Have you seen these before?" "Yes," Yeji replied, excited. "That's the strange part. I found similar symbols at 3 other Void Reaper attack sites. They're always near the oldest parts of each colony." She activated her tablet and showed him pictures from other destroyed worlds. The same glowing symbols appeared in each one, sometimes on buildings, sometimes on ancient monuments that the colonists had built their cities around. "It's like the Void Reapers are looking for these symbols," she continued. "They're not just destroying randomly, they're following a pattern." Back on Nexus Prime, Minho Kim was having similar thoughts as he studied Void Reaper attack recordings. As Earth's chief scientist with the Council, he had access to military files going back thousands of years. "The pattern is clear once you know what to look for," he told Admiral Bay during their weekly briefing. "Every attack site contains ruins from an unknown ancient civilization. The colonists always built their settlements near these ruins because they provided shelter or useful materials." "So the Void Reapers are archaeological hunters?" Admiral Bay asked. "Maybe. Or maybe they're trying to recover something that was stolen." 3 days later, Commander Taiho Moon's expedition made the discovery that would change everything. They were exploring a planet called Caridian Prime, where the Void Reapers had attacked but mysteriously retreated before finishing their destruction. Dr. Inha Ryu, a specialist in ancient languages, was studying a wall covered with the glowing symbols when she found something unexpected. "Commander," she called excitedly, "these aren't just symbols. They're some kind of computer interface." She pressed her hand against one of the glowing marks, and suddenly the entire wall came alive with light. Holographic images appeared in the air, showing star maps and technical diagrams that were far more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had ever created. "What is this place?" whispered Taiho. "I think," Inha said slowly, "we just found a library." The discovery sent shockwaves through the expedition team. This wasn't just an ancient ruin. It was an active facility that had been waiting for someone to activate it. The technology was so advanced that it made current galactic. Science looked like stone tools. "We need to contact Earth immediately," Tai-Ho decided. "This is bigger than anything we've seen before." Within hours, the best human scientists were studying the data from Caridian Prime. What they found was incredible and terrifying at the same time. The ancient civilization called themselves the Architects. According to their records, they had built a galactic civilization based on equality and shared knowledge. Every species had access to the same technology and resources. There were no rulers and no subjects, just partners working together to explore the universe. "It sounds too good to be true," President Yuna Lim said during an emergency video conference with the expedition team. "Maybe," Dr. Inha Ryu replied from the alien library. "But look at this." She activated a holographic display that showed the current Galactic Council structure. Then she overlaid it with information from the Architect records. "The Council headquarters at Nexus Prime is built on top of an Architect facility," she explained. "The faster-than-light communication system that connects all Council worlds, Architect technology, the energy shields that protect core worlds, also Architect technology." President Lim felt a cold chill run down her spine. "Are you saying the Council has been using stolen technology all this time?" "Not just using it," Minho Kim added from his office on Nexus Prime. "Hiding it. The founding species of the Council discovered Architect ruins thousands of years ago. They've been keeping the best technology for themselves while giving only basic tools to newer species. The implications were staggering. The entire power structure of the galaxy was built on a lie. The Thalorian Empire, the Vorthak Collective, and the other founding species weren't naturally superior. They were just the first thieves to find the Architect treasure vaults. Ambassador Sura Choi was the first to understand what this meant for Earth's position in the Council. "We have to tell everyone," she said during the emergency conference. "If we keep this secret, we're just as bad as they are. But if we reveal it, the Council will fall apart," President Lim pointed out. "There will be chaos." "Maybe," replied Commander Jiwon Park from her flagship. "But at least it will be honest chaos." Dr. Yeji Kang made another crucial discovery while studying the Architect records. The Void Reapers weren't invaders from outside the galaxy. They were Architect defense systems, automated guardians programmed to protect Architect technology from being misused. The Architects disappeared millions of years ago, she explained to the team. But they left behind safeguards. When someone uses their technology for domination instead of cooperation, the defense systems activate. "So the Void Reapers are trying to take back stolen property?" asked Tai-Ho. "Exactly. And they're programmed to destroy any civilization that hoards Architect knowledge instead of sharing it." The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. The Galactic Council had been built on stolen technology. The founding species had used that technology to dominate younger civilizations for thousands of years. And now, the Architects automated. Systems had finally awakened to reclaim what was stolen. President Lim made the decision that would reshape galactic civilization. "We're going to tell the full Council everything we've discovered," she announced. "Every species deserves to know the truth." Ambassador Sura Choi stood before the assembled Galactic Council 3 days later. The Great Chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all waiting to hear what the humans had discovered. "Honored Council members," she began, "we have made a discovery that affects every species in this galaxy." She activated the holographic display system and showed them the architect records. She explained about the ancient civilization, their advanced technology, and their commitment to equality. She revealed how the council had been built on stolen architect foundations. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Some species, especially the smaller ones, erupted in angry shouts. Others sat in stunned silence. The founding species tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. "These are lies!" General Kithrak roared, his silver scales turning almost black with rage. "Human propaganda designed to weaken the established order." "The evidence speaks for itself," Sura replied calmly. "We're not asking you to take our word for it. The architect facilities are still active. Anyone can verify what we found." Counselor Thylek from the Krexny species stood up on her platform. "If this is true, then everything we've believed about galactic civilization is false." "Not false," corrected Dr. Inha Ryu, speaking from her position at the Architect Library. "Just incomplete. The architects didn't disappear. They evolved beyond physical form, but their ideals remain, waiting for someone worthy to continue their work." The council chamber descended into chaos. Some species demanded immediate access to all architect technology. Others insisted that the current system had worked for thousands of years and shouldn't be changed. The founding species threatened to withdraw from the council entirely if their authority was questioned. Admiral Junho Bay watched the arguments from the military observers section. He turned to General Minjae Park, who had arrived with the latest human reinforcements. "This is going to tear the galaxy apart," he said quietly. "Maybe," Minjae replied. "But sometimes things need to be torn apart before they can be built properly." As the council session devolved into shouting matches and threats, Intelligence Officer Seojin Han was analyzing the hidden communications she had discovered. The secret messages between council species and outside parties now made perfect sense. "They're not planning to surrender to the Void Reapers," she reported to Admiral Bay. "They're planning to use architect technology to destroy the defense systems entirely, even if it means destroying half the galaxy in the process." The revelation changed everything. The galaxy wasn't just facing a choice between the old order and the new. It was facing a choice between cooperation and annihilation. And Earth found itself standing at the center of a conflict that would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The architects had built their civilization on the belief that all species could work together as equals. Now, millions of years later, that belief was about to be tested in the most violent way possible. The universe was about to learn whether intelligence and cooperation could triumph over fear. President Yoon-ha Lim stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council, knowing that her next words would either save the galaxy or destroy it forever. Behind her, holographic displays showed real-time communications with something that no one had thought possible: direct contact with the Void Reapers. "Honored council members," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to reveal. 3 days ago, Dr. Yeji Kang and her team successfully established communication with the architect defense systems you call the Void Reapers. The chamber erupted in shocked voices from dozens of species. General Kithrak of the Thalorian Empire jumped to his feet, his silver scales blazing with anger. "Impossible!" he roared. "The Void Reapers have never communicated with anyone." "That's because no one ever tried to speak to them in their own language," replied Dr. Yeji, appearing as a hologram from the architect facility on Caridian Prime. "The symbols we found aren't just decoration. They're a communication protocol." Linguist Minji Oh, who had spent weeks learning to interpret the architect language, stepped forward. The defense systems aren't mindless destroyers. They're trying to fulfill their original programming, protect architect technology, and ensure it's used according to architect principles. President Lim activated another display that showed the terms the Void Reapers had communicated. They've agreed to stop all attacks on one condition: the immediate implementation of the Architect Accords. The terms appeared in the air above the council chamber, translated into every known language. Complete sharing of all architect technology among all species. Dissolution of the current council power structure. Creation of a new democratic federation where every species had equal representation, regardless of age or technological development. Speaker Mordak, the tree-like council leader, spoke in a voice that shook with disbelief. "You're asking us to throw away thousands of years of civilization." "No," President Lim replied firmly. "We're asking you to finally live up to the ideals that civilization was supposed to represent." Fleet Admiral Junho Bei stood up in the military section. "To prove Earth's commitment to these principles, we're taking immediate action." He activated his command tablet, and across the galaxy, human ships began broadcasting on all frequencies. Technical specifications for humanity's most advanced military technologies, including Nari Song's adaptive shields and fusion drives, were being transmitted to every species simultaneously. "You're giving away military secrets to everyone?" General Kithrak demanded, his voice rising to a shriek. "We're sharing tools that can protect innocent people," Admiral Bei corrected. "Just like the architects intended." The gesture sent shock waves through the chamber. In one moment, humanity had voluntarily given up their military advantage and leveled the playing field between advanced and developing species. But not everyone was impressed by the gesture. "This is madness," declared Counselor Vexmar from the Vorthak Collective, her crystalline body glowing with agitation. "The established order has maintained peace for millennia. These humans would destroy everything for their primitive ideals." "Peace for whom?" asked Dr. Inha Ryu, still speaking from the Architect Library. "The species you've kept weak and dependent? The colonies you were ready to sacrifice to the Void Reapers?" Counselor Thylek from the Krexny species buzzed with excitement. "My people have waited centuries for access to advanced technology. If the humans are willing to share it freely—" "Then you're a fool," General Kithrak interrupted. "Do you think the Thalorian Empire will simply accept the destruction of galactic order?" The chamber divided along predictable lines. The smaller, younger species supported the human proposal. The founding species and their allies opposed it. The moderate species tried to find a compromise that didn't exist. Admiral Bei received an urgent message from Intelligence Officer Seojin Han. She had been monitoring military communications across the galaxy, and what she found made his blood run cold. "Admiral," her voice crackled through his secure communicator. "The Thalorian Empire is mobilizing their full fleet. They're not planning to negotiate. They're planning to seize all architect sites by force. Within hours, the situation escalated beyond anyone's control. General Kithrak led a walkout of 5 founding species from the council chamber, declaring the human-brokered agreement invalid. By the end of the day, their combined fleets were moving toward known architect facilities throughout the galaxy. "They're going to try to destroy the defense systems," Dr. Yeji reported from Caridian Prime. "The architect records show that if the Guardian network is damaged, it could destabilize the entire galactic infrastructure." President Lim found herself making decisions that no human leader had ever faced. "All Earth ships are to protect architect sites and civilian populations. We will not fire first, but we will defend innocent people." Commander Ji-won Park received her orders while commanding a small fleet near the Rigel system. 3 Thalorian dreadnoughts were approaching an architect facility on the planet below, where a colony of peaceful traders had lived for centuries. "Captain Do-yun, take your squadron and evacuate the civilians," she ordered. "I'll handle the Thalorians." "Commander, those are capital ships," Do-yun replied over the communication link. "We're outnumbered 3-1. "Then we'll have to be 3 times smarter," Ji-won said with a grim smile. The battle that followed became known as the Rigel Engagement, the first shot fired in what historians would call the Galactic Civil War. Ji-won's small human fleet used every trick they had learned fighting the Void Reapers. They scattered and regrouped, hit weak points and disappeared, and turned the Thalorian size advantage against them. But the real shock came when the local defense grid activated. The architect facility on the planet below came online, creating a protective shield around the entire colony. The Thalorian weapons, designed to destroy cities, barely scratched the ancient defenses. "Impossible!" gasped Captain Do-yun, watching energy readings that broke every known law of physics. "No," Ji-won replied, understanding flooding through her. "Just architect." Similar battles erupted across the galaxy as the traditionalist forces tried to seize architect sites before the new accords could be implemented. But they found themselves fighting not just human ships, but awakening architect defenses that had slept for millions of years. Engineer Nari Song worked frantically from her laboratory ship, coordinating with newly activated architect systems. Her hybrid human-alien technology interfaced perfectly with the ancient networks, as if they had been designed to work together. "It's like the architects planned for this," she reported to Admiral Bay. "Their systems recognize our technology, signatures. They're treating us as authorized users." The implications were staggering. Somehow, human technology development had followed patterns that made them compatible with architect systems. Either it was the most incredible coincidence in galactic history, or something else was at work. Dr. Hyun Lee, Earth's military strategist, led a desperate mission to prevent the Thalorians from weaponizing a massive architect facility near the galaxy's core. The facility controlled hyperspace lanes throughout the region, and if it fell into the wrong hands, entire star systems could be cut off from the rest of civilization. "The facility is designed to provide equal access to all species," she explained, to her mixed species assault team. "But the Thalorians want to reprogram it to give their empire exclusive control." The battle for the core facility lasted 3 days. Human, Krexni, Delphinian, and even some rebel Thalorian forces fought side by side against the Empire's elite troops. When the fighting was over, the facility remained under joint control, but the cost was enormous. Meanwhile, Ambassador Sura Choi was working to prevent the conflict from spreading further. In hidden meetings throughout the galaxy, she negotiated with moderate species who were horrified by the violence but afraid to choose sides. "You don't have to choose between the humans and the Thalorians," she told a gathering of neutral ambassadors. "You can choose between the past and the future." One by one, species began defecting from the Traditionalist Alliance. The promise of equal access to architect technology was too tempting, and the human demonstration of sharing their own advances had proved their sincerity. The Terra Accords grew into something larger than anyone had imagined. It became a shadow government that continued to function even as the official Galactic Council collapsed into civil war. Species that had never been allowed to participate in galactic governance found themselves with real power and influence. But the war was far from over. General Kithrock had retreated to the Thalorian core worlds, where he was building a fortress that could withstand any attack. Intelligence reports suggested he was developing weapons that could destroy entire star systems, powered by stolen architect technology. He's going to turn this into a war of extinction, General Min-Jae Park warned during a strategy meeting. If he can't rule the galaxy, he'll try to destroy it. President Lim looked at the tactical displays showing the growing conflict. Red zones marked active battle areas. Yellow zones showed contested systems. Green zones indicated areas under the protection of the new Terra Accords. The galaxy was literally being torn apart. The architects built their civilization on the belief that all intelligent species could work together. The galaxy burned with the light of 1,000 battles. From her flagship above the ruins of Nexus Prime, Admiral Min-Jae Park watched as the largest conflict in recorded history reached its terrible climax. The old Galactic Council headquarters was a broken shell of metal and glass, its twisted remains floating in space like the bones of a dead giant. "Final casualty reports, Admiral," her aide announced quietly. "Estimated 40 billion dead across all species, 12 star systems completely evacuated. The Thalorian Empire's last stronghold is requesting terms for surrender." Min-Jae closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of all those lives. The war had cost more than anyone had imagined, but it had also proved something important. When intelligent species worked together, they could overcome any enemy, even themselves. "Admiral," came the voice of her communications officer, "we're receiving a priority message from Dr. Inha Ryu at the Architect Central Archive." The holographic image of the scientist appeared above the command table. Behind her, the walls of the ancient library pulsed with soft blue light, displaying information that no living being had seen for millions of years. "Admiral Park," Inha said, her voice filled with wonder and exhaustion. "I've made the final discovery. The war, the Void Reapers, all of it. It was a test." "What do you mean?" Min-Jae asked. Inha activated a display that showed the entire galaxy as a three-dimensional map. Red lines indicated the paths of Void Reaper movements over the past 2 years. Blue lines showed where architect facilities had awakened. Green lines marked the battles of the Civil War. The architects didn't just disappear, she explained. They evolved beyond physical existence, but they never stopped watching. The Void Reapers weren't just defense systems. They were part of an enormous test to see if younger civilizations could learn to cooperate instead of dominate. The map showed how the patterns all connected. Every Void Reaper attack had forced different species to work together. Every revelation about stolen technology had challenged the old power structures. Every battle of the Civil War had been a choice between cooperation and conquest. "The entire galaxy has been in the final examination," Inha continued, "and according to the architect records, we passed." As if summoned by her words, space around Nexus Prime began to shimmer. Massive shapes appeared out of nowhere, but these weren't the black destroyers that had terrorized the galaxy. These ships were works of art, crystalline and beautiful, glowing with the same soft light as the architect symbols. This is Architect, prime consciousness speaking to all intelligent life in this galaxy, a voice said, reaching every ship and every world simultaneously. It didn't use translators, but somehow every being understood it perfectly. "The test cycle is complete. You have demonstrated the capacity for growth beyond your primitive origins." President Yunha Lim, speaking from Earth, was the first to respond. "Architect Consciousness, we're honored by your recognition. But we've made terrible mistakes. So many people died in this war. Growth requires struggle, the consciousness replied. Your species, humanity, served as the catalyst for necessary change. You demonstrated that cooperation and shared knowledge produce better results than domination and hoarded power. Other species learned from your example. Commander Ji-won Park, now promoted to Grand Admiral of the Terra Accord Forces, stood on the bridge of her flagship and asked the question that everyone was thinking. What happens now? Now you inherit what we built, the consciousness answered, but not as we built it. You will create something new, something that reflects your own nature and needs. The old Galactic Council dies today. What rises from its ashes is up to you. The formal ceremony took place 3 months later on a new space station built in the orbital space where Nexus Prime had once stood. But this station was different. Instead of being controlled by a few powerful species, it was designed by and for everyone. Engineer Nari Song had worked with architect technology to create something unprecedented, a space station that could adapt and grow as new species joined the Federation. The architecture itself embodied the principles of equality and cooperation. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all configurations, announced diplomat Min Ji-oh, now serving as the first Secretary General. Of the Galactic Federation, I call this assembly to order. The representatives looked nothing like the old council. Instead of platforms that elevated some species above others, everyone sat at the same level. Instead of 12 founding members dominating hundreds of observers, every species had an equal voice regardless of their size, age, or technological level. The first order of business, Secretary General Oh continued, is the formal adoption of the Federation Charter. Dr. Hyun Lee, who had helped write the document, watched from the observers section as the vote was taken. The charter was based on human concepts of democracy, individual rights, and collective responsibility, but it had been modified and improved by input from dozens of different species. The vote was unanimous. President Yoon-ha Lim stood to address the assembly. The architect technology will be placed under joint stewardship. Every species will contribute to its development and benefit from its advancement. No single world or empire will ever again hoard knowledge that could help others. But the real test of the new Federation came in the months that followed. Some species struggled with the transition from hierarchy to equality. The former Thalorian territories were in chaos, as local governors tried to maintain their authority without imperial backing. Grand Admiral Ji-won Park found herself leading peacekeeping forces made up of former enemies. Thalorian soldiers served, alongside human marines and Krexni warriors, all working together to maintain order and protect civilian populations. It's strange, Captain Do-hyun-yu told her during a break between missions. 6 months ago, we were shooting at each other. Now we're fighting side by side. That's what cooperation looks like, Ji-won replied. It's messy and complicated, but it works. The chaos was real and sometimes violent. Planets that had been ruled by fear for generations didn't know how to handle sudden freedom. Trade routes that had been controlled by powerful cartels had to be rebuilt from scratch. Some species tried to take advantage of the confusion to grab territory or resources, but for every problem, the new Federation found solutions. When the aquatic Delphinians couldn't breathe in standard atmosphere ships, human engineers designed hybrid environments. When the crystalline Vorthak had trouble with biological food systems, Krexni farmers developed mineral-based nutrients. This is what the architects dreamed of, Dr. Yeji Kang observed while studying the ancient records. Not perfect harmony, but intelligent beings working together to solve problems. The transformation wasn't limited to politics and technology. Art, music, and literature exploded with new forms as different species shared their cultures. Human. Jazz influenced by Thalorian harmonic scales. Crexony sculpture incorporating Delphinian fluid dynamics. Poetry that required 3 different types of sensory organs to fully appreciate. Intelligence Officer Seojin Han, now head of the Federation. Security Service. Worked to prevent the darker side of change. Not everyone was happy with the new order, and some groups tried to restore the old systems through terrorism and sabotage. Freedom is messy, she reported to the Federation Council. But it's better than the alternative. 10 years after the end of the Civil War, Ambassador Sura Choi stood in her office, looking out at the bustling space lanes around the new Federation capital. Ships of dozens of different designs moved in organized chaos, carrying goods, people, and ideas throughout the galaxy. Her aide, a young Crexony named Kliktar, who had learned perfect human diplomacy, brought her the daily reports. Trade volumes are up 12% from last year, he buzzed enthusiastically. 3 new species have applied for membership. The Outer Rim Development Project is ahead of schedule. Any problems? Sura asked. The usual territorial disputes in the former Thalorian sectors, some smuggling in the neutral zones, a few protests about environmental regulations on the mining worlds. Sura smiled. Normal problems. The kind of problems that healthy civilizations dealt with through laws and negotiations instead of wars and genocide. Dr. Inha Ryu, now the Federation's chief architect technology researcher, made regular reports to the Science Council. The ancient knowledge was vast and would take centuries to fully understand. But every discovery was shared freely among all member species. We've learned to build matter converters that can turn asteroid rock into food, she reported. Medical scanners that can detect and cure diseases we didn't even know existed. Transportation systems that can move entire cities if necessary. And the architect consciousness? Asked the Science Council chair. Still watching, still teaching. They're proud of what we've built, but they're clear that this is our civilization now, not theirs. The epilogue to humanity's great adventure was written by Dr. Yeji Kang in her final report to Earth. She had spent 15 years studying architect records and traveling throughout the galaxy, documenting the changes that followed the Civil War. When Earth first joined the Galactic Council, she wrote, we were considered primitive and backward. We had no advanced technology, no space empire, no ancient wisdom to guide us. All we had were our ideals and our stubborn refusal to accept that things couldn't be better.